What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. Today we're going to be breaking down the final game on the slate for Week 2, looking at the BattleHawks at the Houston Roughnecks here for Week 2 in the XFL, breaking down all of the fantasy football start sits, players across this game, and giving you guys a preview of how we expect this game to go down. But hey, if you guys are looking for XFL fantasy news and just news across the XFL, we'll be posting stuff throughout the season, so click that like and subscribe button for more content all season long. Anyway, not going to waste any more time. Let's get started right away. Alright guys, so I'm pretty stoked for this game. I think this is going to be one of the more exciting games on the week. You have both teams that really surprised and impressed last week. The Roughnecks impressing on offense, and the BattleHawks just overall impressing in general, taking down the highest rated team before the season started. And I think that this is going to be a pretty good game. This is the highest over-under on the week. Right now it's sitting at 50.5. It's the only game that's actually gone over 50. And Houston is favored to win this game by 8, so that gives us an implied total of about 29 to 21-ish. I think that this game will probably go about what is being expected right now, but I think the BattleHawks, you can't count them out. They played really well last week, and yes, this game is in Houston, but they played really well in Dallas as well. I think this is a game that you're going to want to stack a lot of players in for DFS. It should be the highest scoring game on the week. But anyway, let's get into different fantasy takes here, and we'll begin with the away team looking at the BattleHawks. Now, Jordan Ta'amu last week looked really impressive. I don't know how many of you were able to watch the game, but this week should definitely be another test for the young quarterback. He's only 22 years old, guys. Just coming out of college, playing out of Ole Miss. Looked really good out there. Had the longest run on the day, but also was able to hit some people deep. I'm really excited to see what Ta'amu can do in this league. Again, this is the highest over-under on the week, so I'm looking to stack this game heavily in DFS. I think Ta'amu remains one of the better starts, especially if you don't want to pay up all the way for Walker. All right, great. Looking at the running backs. Christian Michael looked terrible last week, absolutely terrible. I can't run for crap, and I felt like I probably could have at least gotten 1 yard. And I advised everyone to move on from him. And then both Matt Jones and Keith Ford did not participants on the Thursday injury report. So are they only going to have one running back this week? Matt Jones will be a good start if he plays, but it's hard to say no to a running back with no committee, right? Wrong. Just doesn't matter. If Matt Jones and Keith Ford don't play, just move on. This is going to turn into a passing team. This is already a game where the BattleHawks might get boat raced. The Houston Roughnecks could put up a lot of points in the first quarter, forcing the BattleHawks to have to abandon the run very quickly. So even if Christian Michael is the only active running back on this team, he's still not really going to be someone that I'm going to be heavily targeting. So I think it's just a fool's errand at this point. Anyway, looking at the better point of this team, and granted, going back, if even with the high over-under, if Matt Jones plays this week, he played so well last week, you have to still consider him a decent running back option this week because he has the potential to score in the red zone. Overall, I think Matt Jones has looked phenomenal. No one really saw their value go up any more than James Butler and Matt Jones last week. All right, but anyway, jump back to the receivers. Now, we had kind of seen this before the season as a 1A, 1B, 1C situation, and that's really what it was. I think LaDainian Washington played really well, even though he didn't have too much in the way of fantasy production, 5 catches for 20 yards. Alonzo Russell with the touchdown and a couple of nice deep grabs. He's definitely more of that deep field guy, and he's probably going to be a bit more up and down, but still really cheap on DFS. Should be a nice play this week. And then De'Mornay Pearson-L looked phenomenal last week. Had a lot. I think he had the most yards after catch of any receiver on the week. So I'm good with starting pretty much everyone here as long as you're buying in with the narrative of this being a high score game. And if they're not running the ball nearly as much, they could all have an impressive stat line. Overall, I would, like I said, I'd be willing to start any of them, but I would leave Keith Mumford on your bench. He didn't really do much last week, and I wouldn't expect him to do too much more this week. Now, looking at the tight ends, Marcus Lucas saw a huge target share last week, tying for the number 1 spot in terms of targets for a tight end, and he's playing for a tight end coach. So, a former tight end coach, rather, and should be started in most formats, assuming tight ends are required in those formats. One of the top tight end pickups on the waiver wire this week. If you picked him up, you're probably starting him. And then on the defensive side, very much like the Wildcats, I'm trying to advise finding a better option. I have full confidence in the Roughnecks offense and would not advise starting the opposing defense on the road. Okay, let's jump over to the Houston Roughnecks. You're starting Phillip Walker until further notice, right? Anyone object to that? After 4 touchdowns in week 1, looking a lot like Lamar Jackson out there. I don't think anyone's going to be benching Phillip Walker until he starts to show signs of weakness. All right, looking at the running backs, Houston had one of the biggest and most annoying running back surprise of last week. Andre Williams was listed as the starter. D'Angelo Henderson was listed as the backup. And both were replaced by James Butler, who was only listed as a kick returner on the depth chart. And this happened before the first quarter was even over. Now both Henderson and Williams are both on the injury report, but I mean, we weren't going to start them again anyway. Butler is a great option this week, especially if either Williams or Henderson or both sit. And if Nick Holley is listed as a running back in your league, then I think you could throw him in as well, even though he didn't get any carries last week. Getting 5 targets on the day is definitely something to note for pretty much any player in this league. All right, looking at the wide receivers. Now, Sammie Coates was one of the bigger disappointments last week, but I'm not losing faith. Sammie Coates didn't Christian Michael played terribly. Sammie Coates had some mistakes, but he was still getting open, and he still looked like he was this close from having a fantastic game. He had 9 targets on the day and was double covered on a lot of his plays, so I'll give the Wildcats credit for keeping Sammie Coates down. But with that came a lot of wide open receivers around him. So I don't think St. Louis is going to make the same mistake by just focusing solely on Sammie Coates and leaving all the other guys open. So overall, I think Sammie Coates is going to have a rebound game here. Khalil Lewis still remains one of the top wide receiver options. Definitely saw his price go way up in DFS, and rightfully so, because he's a really good guy in this league. And then Cam Phillips also had 9 targets in this game, and he did a lot with them, so I think Cam Phillips remains a very strong start. I'd avoid starting any more than 3 guys on any team, just because eventually you're going to run out of targets to go around, but I'd understand if you ended up starting Sam Mobley too. He only had 1 catch last week, but it was for a touchdown, and he looked decent on that 1 catch. So, no tight ends on this team, as most of you know by this point. And then for defense, in what should be a really high-scoring affair, I tried to avoid either defense in this game if possible, but just based on the way the slate fell, with the way different teams are matching up against one another, they still ended up being my number 4 defense on the week, so you're probably going to end up starting them if you need to save a few bucks in DFS. I think Houston ends up being your cheaper option. Probably don't want to go any lower than Houston in DFS. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for my weekly rankings, I have them all posted on my website. You can click that link in the description or go to fantasyaddictionnetwork.com. If you're looking for fantasy news and analysis across the XFL, posted every single day. We'll also be doing some NFL content here soon as free agency is upon us. So click that like and subscribe button to stay up to date with everything that's happening across the fantasy football landscape. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.